All right, so Night Country, True Detective Night Country, episode 2 is out this evening on HBO and Max, or HBO Max if you want to get old school. So far, I am not really very impressed. I know last week I talked about how it just felt off. It didn't really feel like True Detective. The production seems cheap. Right from the opening credits with the Billie Eilish song and the totally different, sort of more generic opening title sequence. Everything about the show feels a little cheaper. The cinematography, just the color grading, something's off. I like the setting. I think that the infinite dark of Ennis, Alaska is really oppressive and moody, and it's got a great atmosphere, but that's not really translated or captured in the cinematography or in the production itself. There's way too many on-the-nose things going on this week. I will say that it suffers from many of the same problems as last week. Just overall, the tone of the show, it's very, very muddled. It's messy. There's too many characters. There's too much going on, too many subplots. You meet so many people. There's numerous different police officers and their families. You have Jodie Foster's character, Detective Danvers, and her assistant Peter Pryor, and his dad, played by John Hawkes, and then you have Detective Navarro, and you have her sister and her lover. In this, Christopher Eccleston's character comes in, and he's like Danvers' boss, but then they're also lovers. And we get another, in my written review, I described it as a ferociously awkward sex scene between Jodie Foster and Christopher Eccleston's characters. And it is. Just like last week had a really awkward and odd sex scene that was just unpleasant to watch. This one also. Season 1 had a couple sex scenes in it. They served the plot. One, to show that Marty's character was a cheating son of a bitch. Cheating on his awesome wife with some, 22-year-old chick who, granted, super hot, but don't do that. You're a dick, Marty. And then, of course, his wife cheating on him with Rust as sort of a revenge thing. That carried a lot of emotional poignancy, that scene. Whereas these scenes they're just weird. They're awkward. They're like thrown in there just, I don't know, is it titillating or is it just awkward? Too much going on. It's hard to follow the actual mystery itself because so much is going on. And in this episode, we learn more about this, one of the scientists, Raymond Clark. We learn is Irish. He got a tattoo of the spiral from season 1 on his chest, and he used the dead native girl Annie as his model, who has the spiral tattooed on her back. So we got all these direct connections to season 1 here with the spiral imagery. He apparently was acting very strange for a long time. People noticed him crying, locked in his room, walking around naked. And all of this is sort of built up to make him seem kind of crazy, especially when they find his trailer, which has the spiral symbol painted on the ceiling and this weird, like, full-sized human body made out of clothing, stuffed clothing on the bed, and photos everywhere. I think it's all a red herring. I think he was probably in love with this girl. She was killed, and he was distraught and trying to figure out what happened, and something went wrong. I don't know what. The season 1 connections are everywhere in this series, and I'm really surprised by that because I thought it would be more standalone. The science base itself is funded by a company called Tuttle United. Now, as we know, Billy Lee Tuttle was sort of the head of the cult in season 1 that was doing all these horrible things like raping children. And Tuttle United, I don't think was ever mentioned, but it's very obvious that this is a connection. If it's a coincidence and it's just another Tuttle thing, that would be crazy. Especially since it's not the only direct named connection this episode to season 1. A lot of people were theorizing last week that Travis, the ghost we saw dancing really goofily, who led Rose, Fiona Shaw's character, to the bodies, was actually Rust's dad, because Rust is from Alaska, and his dad was named Travis. And now this week, in a scene with some very, very on-the-nose exposition, we learn that his name is Travis Cole. That can't be a coincidence, right? So this is Rust's dad. I don't know if this is fan service or if this is just really building on the story of this Tuttle cult that has maybe stretched all the way to Alaska and is funding the science. I mean, I guess it kind of fits because the scientists were trying to figure out apparently, something like eternal life, right? Trying to find the secrets of eternal life. And that fits in with weird culty shit. So beyond that, I just find that it's such an unpleasant show so far. Not in that, in season 1, you had a lot of unpleasantness. It was very dark. There was brutal murders and sort of this gothic southern wasteland of ramshackle huts and swamps and bayous and weird closed down religious schools, and just it was an unpleasant setting, but the characters kept you afloat, right? You genuinely enjoyed the interaction between Rust and Marty. You genuinely enjoyed following their story, whereas this season everybody seems to hate each other. So you have this oppressive setting, which I do like, but then everybody in it is just so negative, except for Peter Pryor. He seems nice, but he's just whatever. He's not that interesting. He's just a nice guy. But, Danvers hates Navarro. Navarro hates Danvers. The miners hate the townsfolk. The townsfolk hate the miners. The lady at the ice rink where they dump the bodies hates Danvers and Navarro. Christopher Eccleston's character is Danvers' boss. They seem to really dislike each other, even though they're banging each other. At one point, Danvers goes to Pryor's house and shows up, hangs out for a minute, and is really rude to his wife's mother, a cute old native lady, just for drawing some lines, face paint on her stepdaughter's face. I don't know. The whole thing. It's unpleasant because nobody likes each other, and so it's not really that great to follow any of their stories. And there's so many stories, so many characters. Navarro's lover boy, who she treats like shit. Navarro's sister, who has a bunch of mental health problems. Danvers. Pryor's dad, played by John Hawkes, who seems like a real weirdo. And why does he have case files stored at his house? It just goes on and on. There's so much going on that it's hard to focus on the actual mystery, which, they investigate this Clark guy, and then we find out that he's not among the bodies. So there is some interesting stuff going on, but it's buried under this huge cast, this sprawling cast, this multitude of stories, subplots, and just kind of this, I don't know, the dialogue doesn't feel great. It's not smart. There's not a lot of witty banter going on. I don't know. I guess, when you do compare it to season one, people were saying to me, why does it have to be compared to season one? Why do you compare? Well, for one thing, it's obviously directly connected to season one. And for another thing, how can you help it? It's called True Detective. If you don't want to make that comparison, well, then don't make it a True Detective show, because you're going to compare. It's just impossible not to. When there's a new season of a show, even if it's an anthological season, or series, with new characters and a new mystery, you still end up comparing. You just can't help it. And this one is more than that. It's not just an anthology, obviously, since they're bringing in characters and stories and symbols and everything else from season one. So let me know what you thought of episode 2 in the comments. I am always appreciative when people offer their insights, and I often miss stuff. So let me know, and thank you for watching. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and peace.